what I normally do with podcasting, because this is not it. Normally, I actually either record in my closet or in my office. And I do it in my closet because of all of the clothes. It's good for soundproofing. And I don't have a studio. So normally I'm in my closet or in my office. If there's nobody at home, I'll do it in my office. I try to do it in my closet also because I have a full house all the time. And you know, my dogs and whatnot. So normally I got my, and I brought this here to do double recording, but so I've got this laptop and I use, this is the mic I normally use for anybody who's interested in podcasting. It's ATR 100, I think. And we use Skype, so we call each other Skype, and it's not video, we just do audio to audio recording with Skype, and I have some software that when I start a Skype session, it actually records both of our voices on it. So that's normally what we're doing. We're just talking on Skype from my closet. It's not fancy at all. And so this is really fun. I feel really fancy, and so glad I get to do this with all my friends. Okay, so normally I would just obviously call my guest, and we normally would do like a powwow before we actually start, or actually I just chop it off. So I start recording right away, and then I just chop off the beginning as we kind of, you know, it's never scripted. None of my podcasts are scripted. There might be a couple questions that I have for people, but most of the time I'm just listening to their story and asking questions, kind of just out of curiosity as we go. I always got my notebook, and I'm asking. You'll probably see me taking notes as we go, what might come up. What else? And so normally we would do that. Amanda and I talked on the phone on Wednesday to spare you guys a little bit of that, and for time's sake. So we powwowed a little bit on how we're going to organize it, but normally we would do that together beforehand. And then I usually just have a big pause and say, I'm going to welcome you in, and then we're off to the races. And then I usually, we kind of end the thing, and then we just take a pause, and then we start talking again. And sometimes I know Elizabeth and I probably talk for an hour after we did the podcast. So many times I can be on the podcast, talking on Skype for a couple. It's usually an hour with a lot of my guests, but sometimes there's been a couple people that I've really connected with, like Elizabeth, and we can talk, a couple hours together, which has been really fun. Anyway, we're not going to do that today. We could do that. Okay, so this is a little bit different. So welcome, Amanda, to Feathers today.
Thank you so much.
Everybody did it. I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you for coming out.
Thanks for having me. This is a real treat.
All right, so why don't we have you share a little bit about yourself and your family and what keeps you busy these days?
Oh goodness. Well, our family is new to the area. We moved here last August from Alaska, where I grew up, and I have 8 children, 5 bio, 3 adopted, and it's just one big crazy circus every day. So that's what keeps me busy. What else? I think I'll go into a little more about my family in a little bit later. I'm on staff at Proverbs 31 Ministries, and I'm there 1 day a week because that's all my life can handle. And I work part-time, and I work 1 day in the office and the rest at home, just here and there. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, and so let's talk about, you're not new to podcasting, so you're probably chill because you're kind of used to podcasting. Tell us about what you do from ministry-wise with Masterpiece Mom and podcast and all that.
Right, so this is my first time being a guest on a podcast, but I am a host of a podcast called The Masterpiece Mom, and it's a blog, a website, and a podcast for moms, to encourage moms, based on Ephesians 2:10. So I host that with my good buddy Anne Renee, who is in Alaska, who I left to move here. And so it's just lots of new opportunities, and I actually don't feel nervous at all. I sometimes feel nervous to record them as the host, but as a guest, I just kind of, I don't know. I like having you all here. I think that's fun. It's a little nerve-wracking, but it's fun. I can see you.
Okay, so we have to talk about a couple of those things. Number one, Alaska. Who's been to Alaska? I see 4 hands. Okay, so you can teach a lot lot of us about Alaska today. I want you to tell me, let's see, tell me like one thing you really, really miss about Alaska.
Let's see. Well, of course, it's summertime in Alaska, and the high is usually on a really hot day, it'll reach 80, but no humidity. So yesterday, the day before, it was 80 degrees, which was like the furnace there. I mean, it's the furnace. You're getting sunburned, you're dying. So I miss the summers are really, really green, but 70 is just the normal average really hot day.
On a day right now outside where we are, it's like 95 and it's an oven outside.
Yeah, I feel like I'm sitting in the crater of volcano, just walking to my car. It's what it feels like. And I was telling my kids, like, I don't think there will ever be a day living here that I don't say hot right when I get out of the house or the car. It's just what we do. I've lived here almost a year now, and it's just hot. I thought winter was kind of summery. I really liked winter. It was really nice. Fall and spring are fantastic. People told me I would like fall and spring. Loved it.
Do you guys does Alaska get, okay, this is where I started to show some of my ignorance in the small talk. Does Alaska get like the 4 seasons? I mean, their 4 seasons?
Yeah, I would say winter, kind of 9 months of, not quite 9 maybe. I would say October to into April feels very wintry. Spring is technically March and April, but it's really muddy and brown. There's no green yet until May generally. And it's just very different. Summer is short and fantastic. It's just amazing. But it's, June, July, and August. And August is rainy, so June and July. And sometimes part of May. So, yeah, it's really kind of 2 main seasons. Fall lasts about a week or 2, and then it's glorious and beautiful. The leaves are yellow, and it's amazing, but they fall, the wind comes, and they all blow off, and it's over, and then it snows. So fall is, I love fall. Spring is probably my least favorite, honestly. It's just ugly and stinky.
Okay, so now that you've been, well, tell me maybe a misconception about Alaska. What do people think about Alaska?
Well, reality shows have kind of done a number on people's view of Alaska. I've actually never seen any of them. I've never watched any of them. So people are like, oh, I've seen the last one. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I don't have any idea. But yeah, I think a lot of people think there's a lot of backwoodsy people. And I'll give you that. I mean, Alaska's really big. It's, I think, technically about the size of a third of we call it the lower 48, the states in the lower 48. People are like, what's that? Or we say, I'm going down to the States. So like, you are a state. But we just say, I'm flying to the States. It's just how you say it. But I think because the population is centered in just a couple main areas, the population of the whole state is just, over 500,000 for the entire state. And I just think a lot of people think it's only backwoodsmen or lumberjack type people or hunters or fishermen, which there are a lot. There are a lot. But there are people that just, kind of living their life, raising their families and working and things like that. So I think that's a misconception. Or that there's a lot of criminals and people go there to hide, which I've heard that. I'm like,
I've heard that one before.
Oh, okay. Well, it's probably true in some areas.
Okay, I'm with the backwoods. Like, I would have, woodsy people. You're not very woodsy though, so.
Yeah. You get to be really gritty though, really tough. I mean, people are like, what? You what? I mean, when you're living there, I lived there just over 30 years, moved there as a kid from Seattle, and my parents were transferred up there with their job. And you just become really gritty. And you're used to the cold, you're walking to the bus stop with the moose and the northern lights, and it's 10 below, and you're just okay. And that's just not normal to most people. So you just become really tough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, after all of that, what do you think about the South?
I think it's really beautiful. I think it's really beautiful and really hot. People are very kind. Our family is a bit of an oddity. We kind of look like a parade going through the store. And people are very kind, and we're mixed race. And so, but people are very kind. People are very curious. And I was a little bit afraid of, what people would say, what people would be like. And people are just very kind. So that's one thing I think about the South. And I think, maybe, I haven't said y'all yet. I have not said that in a real sentence. I just am not.
Podcast for the first time, y'all.
Y'all. I've said it like that, but not in a real sentence that I didn't mean. So if you ever catch me, that'll be my first time. I don't know, I think maybe a little bit, wimpy is not the word I mean in a bad way, but a little bit fair weather-ish. Like, oh, it's so cold. I'm like, oh no, it's so hot. Like, I didn't wear a scarf once all winter. That's my, quote fingers going for you listening on the podcast. Winter wasn't wintry enough for a scarf. So maybe in the nicest of ways, just a little fair weather.
I'm one of those because I'm the one in the winter jacket in summer at my desk. Look, my family's shaking their head yes. I wear my winter jacket in the summer at my desk because I get so cold.
Air conditioning is cold. And I think that's the only little beef I have is that it's really hot outside, but then it's Antarctic, like on the inside. So why can't we just like 70 degrees? That's all I'm wondering.
I think we all would love that.
I think 70 is just indoor. It feels like 50, and I know it's probably a little warmer than that, but it's just such a difference.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's just be friends with 70.
It's so refreshing.
It is at first.
I know. Okay, well, I do want to talk about your story. You mentioned your family, and that's a big thing. So people have asked me why Amanda for the 100th. Is there like a specific reason? And Amanda, I was even going to go back how we met. I think it was She Speaks conference, maybe. Is that right?
But I can't remember if it was last summer or the summer before.
That's why I can't remember either. I felt like maybe 2 years ago because I didn't go to She Speaks. I just went to the Hope Writers gathering at She Speaks last year.
2 summers ago.
Yeah, so I think 2 summers we kind of connected online. And then it was last year at the She Speaks conference, we did the Hope Writers, this is a group writing group that we're in. We had a meetup at the conference, and then I was hearing you talk about the fact that you guys were actually moving to the Carolinas. And so, and I already knew that you guys had adopted. And so I feel like her story really is about, number one, taking the leap of faith with adoption, and I felt like that was so special because that's kind of how this podcast started. So I wanted to kind of go to those roots and talk about her adoptions, and then I wanted to talk about your big move and what that looked like. And I felt like that was really personal to me as well because my family actually moved. My parents moved us down here from Maryland when I was just 3 years old. We lived in a pup tent for 6 weeks. And that was a big leap of faith for my family. So just that, I've had a lot of people on the podcast talking about moving their family and different things, and that was really impactful for me to see my parents make that decision when maybe it wasn't popular with the family or when it wasn't really a good explanation of why you were doing that. And so I felt like those two kind of parts of your story were special to me. And I just love you and have enjoyed following you and just being friends with you. So you're here.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your, first of all, your adoptions. So talk to us about maybe why that was a leap of faith for you guys, why you're doing that faith, and we obviously can't go through all of these adoption stories. We could be here for hours, really, but talk about, especially the first one I think was a big leap of faith for you guys.
Right. So I'll preface all of this by saying about 10 years ago, I made a decision in my heart that I would say yes to anything God asks of me. And I would say yes no matter what it cost, and I would say yes even if I didn't understand any of it. And so that was a decision I made about 10 years ago. And at that point, my youngest, so right after that, I had given birth to our 4th child. We had 4 biological children first. Right now, they are 16, 15, 12, and 9, those 4. And then we have the other 4, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We had those 4 children, and our youngest was just a baby, 8 or 9 months old, and God just began to really impress adoption on our hearts. And it was really confusing because we had 4 children, and when we got married as young 20s, we said we would have 4 or 5 children, which felt like a lot. And that was just kind of, my husband grew up in a family of 4, I had 3, and that felt too few, and so hey, 4 or 5, how about that? And it wasn't anything we were clinging on to, like, oh, this is what has to happen. It's just this vision kind of God gave us. And so when our youngest, her name is Annika, when she was just a baby, God began to impress on our hearts. My sister, who is just about a year and a half older than I am, they were in process to adopt from Korea. A little girl, they had 3 boys first, and they were in process to adopt my niece Molly, who is 9 now. And we just began to ask, is adoption something we should be involved in? Like, it kind of struck us in a strange way, like we never considered it. Oh, they're doing that. That's so awesome. Our niece is going to come home through adoption. But we never really thought of it as being for ourselves until we started to pray about it and ask God, well, is it? Is it for us too? And pretty quickly he confirmed it was, even though we didn't know what it would look like. And there was a verse, James 1:27 says, pure religion, pure and faultless religion, is this, yes, is to take care of widows and orphans in their affliction and to remain unstained from the world. And I think a lot of times Christians kind of have the unstained from the world part. We kind of know we are to live set apart and holy. But I think the other part of it is to take care of these people groups that seem to be really forgotten in our society and around the world. And we're like, whoa, it kind of struck us in a different way. Like, well, everyone is supposed to care for widows and orphans in one way or another. Not everyone is supposed to adopt, but we are to care for them in one way or another. And so we're like, well, how are we supposed to care for them? And it became really important for us to figure it out. And so within a few months, it became clear that, yeah, we were supposed to adopt. And then we started praying about, well, what kind of adoption? Because there's international adoption, there's agency, domestic adoption, there's foster adoption, there's private adoptions. There were so many we just didn't know. And God narrowed it down for us, and he said, it will be a private adoption of a baby, an infant. And fast forward, we went ahead by faith and got our home study done, even though our lawyer's like, oh no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that yet. We'll just wait till maybe there's a match or something. And we didn't sign up for an agency. We just put our name out there with everyone we knew across the country, thinking it won't come from Alaska because our population is so low. It'll come from somewhere else. Someone we know, maybe in the South, or who knows where. So we know people all over. And 9 months later, I was at church, our home church in Alaska. Someone came up to me and said, hey, so-and-so, friends of friends that actually went to our church, their daughter had a baby, and she's 5 weeks old, and they don't know what they're going to do. And I was like, oh yeah, did not think a thing about it. Because you know those situations where you just think, oh, nothing will come of it, so I'm not going to get my heart involved so that I'm not disappointed. And so we honestly, I was like, well, yeah, give them our name, and we made a little free blog with our first names and some pictures, and here's why we want to adopt, and kind of information, so they could look at us and not have to talk to us. So that's what we did, and to be a little they didn't have to feel afraid to get to know us. They'd have to actually talk to us first. And so we gave them the address. It was like Jeremy and Amanda Adopt. I don't even remember what it was. And they looked at that, and her parents were like, well, we want to meet you. And we're like, oh, like you're for real. Okay. So we started this process of getting to know this birth family in our town, and visits at their house, and ended up meeting the birth parents eventually. And we brought home 9-week-old Gabrielle 7 years ago. She's 7 now, and that was our first adoption. And it was.
And you guys are still in contact with the birth family?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You guys have visits, and so what did that look like?
Yeah, we didn't have anything on a schedule. We just said we more saw her grandparents as who we had a relationship with. Her birth parents, it was an open adoption as long as it was healthy and safe and healthy for all of us, is kind of how we said it. And we said, you're welcome to contact us. We'd love for you to see us, and they just never did. We ended up seeing her birth mom right before we moved, so we hadn't seen her for a couple of years, and she apologized. I'm like, you don't have to apologize. With it, whatever you needed, we were good with. Whatever you needed, we were fine with, and we're just so happy to see you. And so we got to see her and spend the evening with her and get some pictures, and we cried and just had that mutual love and appreciation for each other. So that's our first adoption. And after that, it just, a couple months later, I had this, how it works in our family. So my husband is Jeremy. How it works is sometimes it works a lot this way with the female-male thing is God will speak to me about something, and then I'm responsible for bringing it to him. And it's like, okay, can we just get this word from God sometimes and just bring it to me? Because I would just love that. And it always works that way.
It works that way with us too.
Okay.
Scott testified. Yeah, she's raised in sand. That's
Yes.
the way. I don't know why that is. Has anybody else experienced that in their marriage? That it goes through.
Yes.
Goes through one person. I don't know. Is that biblical? I don't know. It's up to God. God's doing it, so it must be.
The cool thing is that through the years, Jeremy began to realize that, oh yeah, everything that he's saying to her is real. I better listen. Like, I should, like, listen up, because everything that she has said from the Lord has happened, or he's led us into. And so a month or two after we brought home 9-week-old Gabrielle, I was like, honey,
You have to talk. That's what I always say.
there's something else. I think we are supposed to adopt again. And he's like, we just got a baby. What do you mean? We have 5 children now. What do you mean? And I was like, I don't know. So I was like, well, what would you think about me turning in our complete home study to our local Office of Children's Services, what it's called in Alaska, OCS. And so we did. And the interesting thing is when we were praying about adoption originally, the year or two before, the one kind of adoption we were saying no to, of course, right, was foster adoption. And that's what we were saying no to, because it seemed too scary, our kids were too young, nope. And so it was interesting that we'd already adopted the first time with a private adoption, and then the Lord was saying foster adoption to us. And we're like, oh,
Don't you love when you say no to the Lord?
I know.
Like, I'm never doing that.
Be really
We had a
careful
joke,
when
like,
you
don't
say
ever
no.
say you're never going to do something, because somehow you always end up
Our
doing
next 2 adoptions were foster adoptions. So we turned in our completed home study, and really long story short, several months later we got a call about a 9-month-old baby boy, a little chubby Eskimo baby, and Levi and Gabrielle are 4 months apart. We got them June 24th of one year and June 25th the next year, and they're wow. There was a time where we had 3 in diapers, because we had another baby born the next June, and so we had 3 babies, 2 and under, and then older kids as well. And it was intense. So we had a lot of diapers and a lot of crying for me and them, and those 3 are now 5, 6, and 7. So we're growing a little bit. We're getting there, like it takes a while. We're
But
getting
you're
there.
in school though, right? Almost?
Well, yeah, we homeschooled forever until this
homeschooled.
year. This year, God said your 4 elementary kids need to be in public school, and so we put them in public school when we got here, and we've never done that before. We had 1 or 2 in charter school, kind of before we moved, a little tiny school, and we had 4 in a school of like 800 or 900 kids with 8 kindergarten classes. We're like, God, where have you moved us? Like, people shock. You're in people shock here. But yeah, so now, this year we'll have 5 in elementary school at the same school, and we've always homeschooled our middle and high schoolers, so that's where we are.
Okay, so did we get to all your kids?
No. we brought Levi home that June. What year was that? 2011. Then the next summer we had Emily. She's 5 now. She came the old-fashioned way. And then we were good. We were done. That was 7 kids. We're like, whoa, that was way more than we thought. It's God's number. We're just good. Like 7 is really good. And we weren't planning on it anymore. And then we got a surprise phone call from a social worker up in the village where our little Levi was born. And she was really nervous, and I was really nervous. I'm like, oh wait, where did you call the social worker? What's wrong? Or what are you after? And she said, well, we have Levi's big brother. He came into care, and he's 6 years old, and we knew about him. His original name was Jacob as well. I don't know if I've told you that. His name is Jackson now. It's a long story. He wanted to change it. And so we got this call, and I was shaking. Like, wait, older kid. It was another foster adoption. We'd only done babies, and he'd be out of birth order. He'd be older than 4 of our kids, and we were pretty shaken by it. And the thing is when we adopted Levi, the first little foster adoption, we had already had several half-siblings, and so we knew about him. And we had his name and birth date written down on a list just so we could tell our children later, these are your siblings, if you want to find them, here's some information. We never wanted to hide anything from them. So we had his name and number in the junk drawer of my island. I had it laying there, and I was like, oh, we're that's him. But come to find out, they were full biological siblings. They found their birth certificates. It sounds like a Hallmark movie or something. They were full biological siblings, same birth father, same birth mother, and we were floored. And the social workers floored too. So we did some digging. He's been in care for 4 months, and we didn't want to contact you yet until we knew what was going on. And he was living in a children's home because there aren't enough foster families in Bush, Alaska, not enough safe people.
There's not enough foster families
anywhere.
Anywhere. Please, if you're interested, sign up.
That's right.
You can talk
right.
to Sharon.
So both of our boys lived in this children's home, and anyways, we waited about a week to answer, and we spoke to people we loved and trusted, and people were praying for us, and spoke to our families, and we have no idea. Like, we said yes, and God confirmed it for us. It was a yes. It has been, Jackson is 9 now. He's almost 10. He's, both our boys have some special needs from the birth mom drinking alcohol in utero. So they have some fetal alcohol effects and ADHD. Both of them, they look like twins, just, a foot and a half apart. People are like, how did they not know? Like, how did they not know they were brothers? How did they not know each other? And, when you get in the world of kids coming from hard places, no strange story is off limits. I mean, kids are living in these horrific situations that you can't even imagine. And our boys never even knew each other existed until they got to our home. And we waited to tell Jackson that Levi was his little brother for several weeks, almost 2 months, because we didn't want him to think that we brought him home because of his little brother. We wanted him to know that he was loved and cherished and wanted just because it was him. And so that's what we did, and I told him, and hey, so do you know how babies grow in ladies' tummies? He's like, yeah. And I was like, well, do you know what tummy you grew in? He's like, yours. I'm like, you're 6, and you came home 2 months ago, and he thought he was birthed by me. And I explained a little further, do you know whose tummy you grew in? And he's like, no. And, well, guess what? You and Levi, you came from the same tummy, and that means you were brothers even before you came, even though you never met. And he was like, can I have a snack? I'm like, sure, that's fine. And they're just so unaffected, and they've been the best buddies. They get in the most trouble together. They can't share a room. They both share with a teenage brother. So Drew is my oldest, he's 16, he shares with Jackson. And Gavin is 15, and he shares with 6-year-old Levi. So
tell me their ages again.
Yeah, Drew is 16.
The two brothers are 16.
Oh, they are 9 and 6.
9 and 6. Mm-hmm. So how is that when they came home? Like, can you it's like the whole nurture versus nature thing. Can you see the whole? I mean, you're saying they're getting in trouble together. So can you see that? Magnetic to monkeyness and trouble. Yeah, I mean, there's a definite connection. The difference is Levi came home at 9 months of age and lived in abuse and neglect for 2 months, the first 2 months of life. Jackson lived in abuse and neglect for 6 years. And so his entire formative years were in an abusive home with all kinds of abuse and people shooting through windows. He lived in a very remote village in an island. When the social worker went to remove him from the home, he didn't have shoes or clothes. And so she said, I need all of his belongings, and I'm taking him right now, leaving the island with him. And they said, well, we don't have anything for him. So he lived in a horrific situation, and that's the difference. Levi didn't. They have some of the same damage to their brain from the alcohol in utero, but their life experience has been very different. And you can see that because Jackson's been used to protecting himself for years, and Levi didn't have that. So there's definitely a difference. God has done a miracle in his life. We've gone through some really rough times, some really hard roads, the hardest roads of my entire life. And I hope I never have to revisit anything like we have gone through. And God has been so faithful in his life. And we saw, a year and a half ago, we saw this flip just switch in his heart and his head. And he's just a new boy. He's always had the best heart. Our social worker, when she called us, she said, everybody loves him. And there's something so special about him. And even though he was coming out of this horrific situation, there was something so special about the goodness of his heart.
He has never said one bitter or hard word about where he came from. When he first came, he just said, well, I'm in your family now. And that's how he's always looked at it. So he's a beautiful boy.
Yeah, so good to hear. Tough stuff. So I know just because I follow you on the web that, and you just described some of it, that this yes that you said to God so many years ago has not been easy. What are some of the things that, through all of these adoptions, that God has taught you about, living by faith?
I think he's taught so much. I know that women have this thing a lot of times where we want to just know the ending. We want to be able to control it. We want to know how it's all going to turn out before we say yes. And he's really taught me so much about just what faith really is. It's that, it's that leaping and trusting that he's going to catch you, that it's going to be okay. It might be hard. There's no guarantee it won't be difficult or excruciating even, but he will catch you and he will cover you with his feathers. Like that verse says in Psalm 91. This has taught me so much about faith, and based on the past, right? We can all do that. We can look back and say, see the faithfulness, and that gives us that the ability to trust moving forward. Because look what he's done already. Look what he's done through his son. Look what he's done through Christ. We can trust that he would give us every good thing that he can because he's already given the best. Why wouldn't his son, why wouldn't he give us just these little things we need? And so that's been really huge for me. And it's given me and Jeremy and our big kids, as they become our big kids, they're teenagers, it sounds so weird, but they've been able to see this walked out. They've been able to see God's faithfulness, and they've been able to trust as we've moved 4,000 miles away from all our grandparents, all the people that are our support. We need a lot of support. We need a lot of support, and we moved here without any of that, not knowing what life would look like.
Yes, I want to talk about that because you have this whole family. So how many years was it? So you have your family of 8 children, 10 altogether. How long is it before you have this beginning of this inkling that you guys are going to move?
Well, I don't know what it is, but since I was young, North Carolina has been on my heart. We live in South Charlotte right now. It's been on my heart, and I could never explain it, and I did never think anything.
Have you been here?
No.
Really?
I've come here. So how it all happened that we were moving here is 4 summers ago. I came to a conference I've been dreaming of coming to for 5 years prior, and it's called She Speaks, and it's put on by Proverbs 31 Ministries, and it's a conference for speakers and writers and leaders, and it's a big commitment. It would have been for me to fly across the continent to come to leave my family, and it's a few days, traveling. The least I've ever gone is I think 5 days, because it's 2 days traveling total, 3 days at the conference with no extra. So it's a really big thing. I've come for anywhere from 5 to 7 days. But when I came that first year, it was something that I've been praying about for 5 years, and we couldn't do it financially. It was a big investment. It is a big investment. And finally one year, my husband said, it's time for you to go. And I've been kind of pining over Proverbs 31 Ministries for 10 to 15 years. I'm on staff with them now. But they've just been on my heart, their ministry, and the She Speaks conference. I'm a writer and a speaker, and they've just been on my heart. And so I came finally, and was just kind of like a kid at Disneyland for the first time, like, oh my word, I can't believe I'm here. And just being in Charlotte, it meant so much to me, and I couldn't explain it, and the Spirit just hangs so heavy on me when I'm here. And so when I was there at the hotel, there were people that would come up to me. Somebody came up to me and pointed to me and said, you need to be affiliated with Proverbs 31 Ministries. And I was like, what? Like, what is this? And I would go to my hotel room and cry because I'm like, what is God doing? And he had to speak, you need to be here. You need to be here. And that was 4 years ago.
And you had all your
I had
children?
7.
I
had 7.
Oh my goodness, I was telling you to move to the
Yes.
lower 48.
I know, across the country, and I waited to tell Jeremy about all of this because it was kind of big, and he was born and raised 40 years in Alaska, and had verbally said before, I never want to leave. I have no reason to leave, and I'm not leaving Alaska. So I was like, okay, that's pretty good groundwork to work with here. And so I waited a few months after I got home and told him that, well, hey, while I was there's just something interesting that happened, and I think God wants us to move to Charlotte. And he's like, well, I don't know about that. And then, the pat answer is, well, we'll pray about it. Yeah, we'll pray about it. And we literally did for 3 years. We prayed about it, and I came back every summer. He sent me back every summer, and he's like, hey, aren't you going to sign up? I'm like, I can? And every year that happened, I can? And I came back every summer, the last 4 summers. I even came last summer when we were moved out of our house and living with my parents, because we were moving back in 2 weeks. And I even came last summer, 2 weeks before we moved. And he sent me then, and I flew home, and 9 days later we moved here, moving out of suitcases. And but God made it really clear a year ago.
Say, how do you get from, hey, I think we're going to move, to actually deciding to be clearly, prayer to God?
Right.
Was there anything that really helped cement that? There's going to be a lot of things.
There were a lot of interesting things. We didn't actually tell our kids until we decided to move last May. They didn't know the 3 years of prayer because we just didn't know. We didn't tell our parents. We didn't tell anybody other than a few close friends that were praying with us. And so it was hard because I couldn't talk about it with anybody. And it was also hard because we didn't know exactly why we were coming. There was no job lined out. There was no ministry position. There was just God saying, go. And literally that was the word he gave me the year before we moved, is go. And there was one day, about 9 months before we made the decision to go, I think she was 3 at the time, my youngest Emily. We were at a wedding, and my good buddy Ann Renee, who I'm in ministry with, and we have the Masterpiece Mom podcast and blog, and we were standing at a wedding together. My little Emily turned around, no lie, she wasn't in our conversation. We were talking probably about bridesmaid dresses, and she turned around and she said, Mama, God says go. And Ann Renee goes, what did she just say? And I was like, I don't know. That was the word he'd already given me. And my little Cena turned around, little sassy pants, and was like, Mama, God says go. And she skipped off.
Just random.
And we were reeling, and I'm like, Jeremy! He was standing next to me. He didn't hear, but Ann Renee's like, I heard it. And so we were talking about it, and we continued to pray that next year. And there was one Sunday in particular. And that was it. We still hadn't talked to anybody. And it was becoming, summertime would be the best time to move, because kids are out of school, the market's good in Alaska at that time, probably everywhere. Everybody's transitioning in summer. And there was one Sunday where I was home sick from church, and Jeremy took 5 kids maybe to church, and I was home with 3, I think. And I know, it's so funny. It's like my real life. He just took 5 by himself, no big deal. And I was home, and I was on the couch, and I knew our pastor was preaching from Hebrews 13. And so I went ahead and just read it while I was laying there on the couch. And there was a verse that stuck out to me, and I'd never noticed this verse before, never really thought of it, never studied it for sure. And it was Hebrews 13:14. And it said, we do not have a lasting city, but we seek the city that is to come, which is the unshakable kingdom. And I was like, whoa. We are right in the thick of making this decision. And I wrote it down in my journal, in my bullet journal. I was bullet journaling at the time, if you know what that is. I wrote it down, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to tell Jeremy. This is not going to tell him. And he came home from church, and he didn't say anything. And your sermon about that, maybe the pastor just rushed right over it. I have no idea. But 3 days later, Jeremy at least isn't going to just jump right on it. And he waited, and he remembered it. He's like, hey, it's a Wednesday. By the way, in that sermon on Sunday, there was this verse that really stuck out to me. And I was like, oh wait, what? And he's like, yes, it's Hebrews 13:14. We do not have a lasting city, we seek the city that is to come. I was like, wait a minute. So I got my journal and I showed him. I was like, I wrote that same thing down. He's like, well, there's more. He said, I asked the teens before we went into the service to just be paying attention, and because we've been really praying hard about this, and had told them no, didn't tell them why. So we really want you to be listening and engaging, and tell me after the service on the way home what stuck out to you. And they both said that verse. And to us it meant that it's okay, in fact it's good to let go of the things in this world that are temporal, that feel like you want to grip so tightly to, because none of this will last. It's only what we do for the kingdom of God that will last. And that just struck us so deeply. And we decided that day that we were moving, and we told our kids the next day we were moving, and we called our parents and had them come over and told them we were moving. And we all died, 1,000 deaths. And we listed, our kids were like, are you pregnant or are we adopting? Which one? It's neither, it's finally neither. It's always those. We need to talk, guys, sit down, gather as a family.
Family meetings.
Yeah, always mean adopting or babies are coming. And it meant something different this time. And they were so shocked. A couple of them cried because, of course, we had 3 years to pray and process this. They'd never been in North Carolina. And we didn't even know why exactly either.
So you couldn't even give them a reason?
No. But, well, we just believe God has something for us there. It's kind of speaking to us about it, but we don't know what yet. So we listed our house about a week and a half later, and it sold the next day. And our first person who looked at it, full price offer, and we said yes, and we moved out 6 weeks later. Moved in with my in-laws, and then we lived with my in-laws for like 9 or 10 days, and my parents for 9 or 10 days, and then we got here August 3rd with no home. We didn't have a place, we didn't have any place lined out. We didn't have a school for our kids that was starting in a couple weeks. We had a place to live. A friend I had met through the conference here in Charlotte had moved here on Faith a year before us. We got to be friends because of a similar story, and they let us stay in their guest house, their property. So 10 of us is one bedroom.
I was going to say, they must have a nice guest house.
It was a little one-bedroom, little guest cottage, and
Oh my gosh.
we had kids on the floor, kids in the closet. We had kids everywhere, air mattresses, sleeping bags. For 2 weeks, we had it indefinitely until we found something, but it took 2 weeks. We found a rental, and we've been living there last year, and bought a house this summer, and we're renovating. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah,
we're
I could
renovating
do a
the
nice
whole
break.
house, all 10 of us, and 80% of our work crew are children. So it's really awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Free labor.
Mhm.
That is so great. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. That's so amazing. I love all of that. I love how you use your children and how you use that verse. And I just find that often how God will just point out a verse that sometimes may not really have anything to do with what it might have originally kind of meant, but it's like he just gives you those verses and just confirms, what we're supposed to do through his word. And so often I find too that, that word go, God speaks so much to me like that too, just one and two words, like go and stop and yes and no, and sometimes he's not very wordy, but he doesn't need to be.
Well, we have to be listening,
Yeah.
and not pushing those types of words aside because we don't understand them or we don't agree with them. We have to really listen and sit with them and pray about them and soak in it. And it might take a really long time. And I think sometimes we're so quick to get to the next activity or the next thing that we just kind of ignore things sometimes. So I'm trying to be really mindful about what I'm sensing the Lord speaking and not running past it.
Yeah. And all the different people coming alongside of you, praying too.
There were people here, a lot of people here praying as well.
Yeah. That's so good. So what has it been like? We talked a little about the weather, but I know that it's not been easy not having a support system here. And you do sense, you talked about that you now have a job with Proverbs 31. So somehow he worked that out. You
Right.
had a heart for Proverbs 31. Somebody pointed you at the conference and says you need to be with this. So how has that all worked out even since coming?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Before we moved, we're like, well, why are you moving? And you can't give an answer when you don't have anything. And so we didn't want to be presumptuous and say, well, this is why we're moving. Eventually we're hoping it'll work out. We just can't talk like that because that's prideful. And so we just said, we don't know, but we believe there's something there for us, but we don't know exactly what it is yet. And in my heart, I felt like I knew Proverbs 31 was, in my future, but I didn't have anything. So how do you even say that? And so we didn't say a lot about it. And I just started, they knew I was coming. They knew I was coming. But I had never outright said, hey, I'm coming. I'd love a job, or I'd love to blah, blah, blah. Because I was like, I knew I wasn't ready for it. I knew I have 8 kids at home. I knew that running my own life, let alone helping run a ministry. It's not something I had a lot of extra brain space for. And so I just was content to sit back and wait and be a spectator and volunteer a little bit. So I volunteered at an event the first week I got here. A couple weeks later, they asked me to come and just volunteer for this other thing. And then in January, I was invited out to dinner by Lisa Turkhurst, and she knew I was here. We didn't know exactly why. And with another friend, we went out, and it wasn't a dinner to offer me a job. It was just a dinner to talk and get to know me. And it came out after that she wanted me to contact her, and she invited me to join her team. So that's what I do at Proverbs 31. I'm on, with the whole of the ministry, I think there's almost 60 of us on staff. And then Lisa herself has a smaller team of, I think there's 6 of us that run just her stuff. So somebody does scheduling, somebody does social media, she runs her own Instagram, but other people schedule stuff on Facebook and things like that for her. And I'm on her content team, which means that I help edit, manage anything she's writing or doing. I'm helping, there's 3 of us that do that. So I'm on her content management team. So that's what I do, and it couldn't be more perfect. It's just enough for me to be involved and do what I love, but it's not too much that, I would probably feel like shooting myself every day if I went in more than one day in the office. It would be overkill. And so it's just perfect right now for my life to do that. And it's been a great lesson for me in sitting back and being patient, but being open. Patient and open, I think they need to go together more often.
So I'm just so encouraged. I don't know, you guys encouraged? I'm encouraged to just a man being so open to the adoptions and all the things you said you would never do, and then you did anyway, just because you trust God. And moving here, not having a plan, that's crazy. Moving a family of 10 across the country that you didn't really have a plan, and just has been so faithful to actually give you that job. And
Jeremy didn't have a job either when we came. We didn't have a plan for that either. So that was a
family
big
of
piece
10 without jobs. That's a leap of faith. And is he working?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's working.
Yeah, it's just been through connections we've made here right off the bat, some decisions. The job he has now is based off of the yes I said in Alaska when I didn't want to. I didn't want to volunteer for this thing. I wanted to go to the thing. I didn't want to volunteer behind the scenes and not get to go. I wanted to go. And because I said yes to staying behind and not going to the event and volunteering behind the scenes, he met the people that he now works for. It's been a great, I cried about it. I was like, I don't want to say yes to that. I want to go have fun and see friends I've been waiting to see that knew I was coming, and I didn't get to. But because of that, yes, he was able to connect with the people that he works with now. So.
Man, God is so good. God is so good to provide for you guys, and with our yeses, He uses it. There's the verse comes to mind. He works all things together for good for those that love Him. Clearly you love Him and have obeyed Him, and it's just beautiful to see, and I'm so encouraged. So we have these ladies here. I don't know, just open it up if there's any last things that you might, or words you might want to encourage them with as we go from here.
I think I would say that walking through the dark times of a couple years ago, in the middle of us praying about the move, we were in the middle of our deepest, darkest valley as a family. And I know some of you are probably there right now at this moment in a deep, dark valley. And I would say just to keep your eyes up. Keep your eyes up, because down here on the ground, those are all the temporal things. And you will get through this. It will, you might end up with some scars, but you will get through it. You will pass through it. But keep your eyes up, because that's the only thing that will last is God working through His Son to bring Him to earth, to be God with us. And He's with us now. And I would just encourage you to keep your eyes up, to trust Jesus as your Savior. And He will see you through every step of this valley that you might find yourself in, or that you might find yourself in next week. Our life is hills and valleys. And I would just encourage you to keep your eyes up. Because that's our only hope. Our only hope in a valley or on a good, smooth day is the life we have in Christ. So,
amen to that. So Amanda, people want to follow you and your lovely family and follow your podcast and stuff. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at amandabacon.com. I'm right over there every month or two. I'm not as good about as I used to be, but I'm also at themasterpiecemom.com, and you can find the Masterpiece Mom podcast on iTunes, or you can listen right on the blog, The Masterpiece Mom. And Instagram is my favorite place on the web, so that's where you'll find me almost every day. And I am at Amanda _, the little underline Bacon Bits. Because Bacon Bits, at Amanda Bacon Bits. Bacon Bits are what we call our kids, because my last name is Bacon. So they're the Bacon Bits, and yeah. So, and on Facebook, I have an Amanda Bacon page for my blog, and the Masterpiece Mom is on Facebook too.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming today, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks.